It's been 80 years since It's a Wonderful Life touched our hearts. But behind the festive cheer lies a trail of tragic ends and Hollywood's darkest scandals. Join us as we explore what really happened to the stars in 2026. James Stewart as George Bailey. James Stewart was born on May 20th, 1908, in Indiana, Pennsylvania, United States. At 38 years old, he played George Bailey, the desperate small-town banker saved from suicide by a guardian angel in It's a Wonderful Life. His raw performance carried the emotional weight of the film and turned the character into one of cinema's most unforgettable figures. But the calm hero on screen hid a turbulent private life. Stewart spent years as Hollywood's most famous bachelor, drifting through intense relationships with Ginger Rogers, Norma Shearer, and Olivia de Havilland, even proposing to de Havilland only to be rejected. Everything changed in 1949 when he married Gloria Hattrick McLean, a divorced model with 2 sons. Stewart adopted the boys and later welcomed twin daughters, building what looked like a perfect family. Then tragedy struck in 1969 when his adopted son Ronald McLean, a Marine lieutenant, was killed in Vietnam at just 24. Friends said Stewart never fully recovered from that loss, even while continuing to appear in major films such as Rear Window and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. The emotional strain was compounded by lingering scars from war. Stewart had flown dangerous B-24 bomber missions in World War II, and the memories followed him home. He struggled with shaking hands, sleepless nights, and recurring anxiety, symptoms now widely recognized as PTSD. Sadly, Gloria Hattrick McLean died of lung cancer on February 16, 1994, leaving Stewart withdrawn and increasingly isolated. On July 2, 1997, he died at 89 years old in his Beverly Hills home after a heart attack caused by a pulmonary embolism. Thousands attended his memorial, and he was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, with full military honors, recognizing his rank as a brigadier general in the U.S. Air Force Reserve. At the time of his death, Stewart's fortune was estimated at about $30 million, yet his lasting legacy remained the fragile humanity he gave to George Bailey. Donna Reed as Mary Hatch. Donna Reed was born on January 27, 1921 in Denison, Iowa, United States. At 25 years old, she played Mary Hatch, the loyal woman who becomes George Bailey's emotional anchor in It's a Wonderful Life. Her warm presence balanced the film's darkest moments and helped turn the story into a timeless holiday classic. The gentle wife audiences adored on screen lived a far more complicated romantic life. Reed first married Hollywood makeup artist William Tuttle in 1943, but the marriage collapsed within 2 years. She then married producer Tony Owen, and together they raised 4 children. For decades, their marriage appeared solid, yet behind the scenes, tensions grew. In 1971, after 26 years together, the couple divorced in a highly public split that stunned fans and shook Reed emotionally. She later found stability with retired Army Colonel Grover W. Asmus, whom she married in 1974. Career pressure soon returned in an unexpected way. In the mid-1980s, Reed joined the legendary TV series Dallas, stepping into the role of Miss Ellie. When producers abruptly removed her from the show to reinstate the previous actress, Reed launched a bold lawsuit against the network. The case shocked Hollywood. Reed won, receiving over $1 million in compensation. But the legal battle unfolded while she was unknowingly battling a far more dangerous enemy. Around the same time, she began suffering severe abdominal pain, which doctors eventually identified as advanced pancreatic cancer. Finally, Donna Reed died on January 14, 1986, in Beverly Hills at the age of 64, only months after the diagnosis. She was buried at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. At the time of her passing, her estate was estimated at about $5 million. Yet audiences still remember her most vividly as Mary Hatch. Lionel Barrymore as Mr. Potter. Lionel Barrymore was born on April 28, 1878, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, United States. At 68 years old, he played Mr. Henry F. Potter, the ruthless banker who stands as George Bailey's greatest enemy in It's a Wonderful Life. His chilling portrayal of greed gave the story its most unforgettable villain and sharpened the film's moral battle between hope and corruption. Yet behind the powerful screen presence was a man carrying devastating family loss. Barrymore married actress Doris Rankin, and the couple had two daughters, Ethel Barrymore II and Mary Barrymore. Both babies died in infancy, a tragedy that shattered the family and slowly destroyed the marriage, which ended in divorce in 1922. Years later, he remarried actress Irene Fenwick, but the grief from losing his children never faded. Friends said Barrymore became more distant and often retreated into painting and music while continuing his film career in works such as Grand Hotel and Captain's Courageous. Pain followed him into his later years. Severe arthritis and repeated hip fractures left Barrymore in constant agony, forcing him to rely on powerful injections just to endure filming. A falling object reportedly shattered his hip in 1936, and another accident on the set of Saratoga in 1937 broke it again. The injuries never healed properly. By the time he appeared in It's a Wonderful Life, Barrymore was confined to a wheelchair and required frequent painkillers during scenes with James Stewart. Lionel Barrymore died on November 15, 1954, at 76 years old, after suffering a heart attack in the Van Nuys area of Los Angeles. At the time of his death, his fortune was estimated at around $1 million, but his legacy endured through the unforgettable cruelty of Mr. Potter. Gloria Grahame as Violet Bick. Gloria Grahame was born on November 28, 1923, in Los Angeles, California, United States. At 23 years old, she played Violet Bick, the flirtatious small-town beauty whose carefree charm contrasts sharply with Bedford Falls' moral expectations in It's a Wonderful Life. Though her role was brief, her magnetic screen presence hinted at the darker, complex characters she would later portray in Hollywood. But Graham's personal life soon became far more shocking than any film role. She married actor Stanley Clements in 1945, and the marriage collapsed within 3 years. The day after the divorce was finalized, she married director Nicholas Ray, with whom she had a son. Their relationship ended in scandal when Ray reportedly discovered Grahame in a compromising situation with Anthony Ray, his own teenage son from a previous marriage. The marriage quickly imploded. Years later, Grahame stunned Hollywood again by marrying Anthony Ray himself in 1960, a union that tabloids described as deeply disturbing and that nearly destroyed her career during the era of films like The Big Heat and Human Desire. As the scandal faded, another obsession quietly took hold. Grahame became increasingly fixated on her appearance, convinced her lips were too thin. She began stuffing cotton and tissues under her upper lip during filming to create a fuller look, later undergoing repeated cosmetic procedures. The surgeries damaged facial nerves, leaving her upper lip partly paralyzed. At the same time, she faced a far more serious threat: breast cancer diagnosed in 1974. She resisted aggressive treatment, fearing it would alter her appearance. The disease returned years later and spread rapidly while she was still performing on stage in England. Gloria Grahame died on October 5, 1981, at 57 years old, shortly after being admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital in New York. Doctors determined the immediate cause was stomach cancer and peritonitis, the final stage of a long cancer battle. By the time of her death, Graham's estate was estimated at about $1.5 million, yet her life remained one of Hollywood's most unsettling stories. Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy. Thomas Mitchell was born on July 11, 1892, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, United States. At 54 years old, he played Uncle Billy, the absent-minded but kind-hearted partner whose mistake nearly destroys George Bailey's life in It's a Wonderful Life. His warm yet chaotic performance added tension to the story and created one of the film's most memorable emotional turning points. Behind the lovable screen persona stood a man battling intense personal pressure. Mitchell married Anne Stewart Brewer early in life, but the marriage collapsed in divorce. He later married Rachel Barnes Hartzell in 1937, and that relationship also ended quickly, leaving emotional strain and a child to support. In 1941, he reunited with Anne Stewart Brewer, marrying her again and remaining with her until his death. The pressure of maintaining marriage weighed heavily on him. Colleagues often noticed his social anxiety and constant fear of fading from Hollywood's spotlight, even after he achieved the rare acting milestone of winning an Oscar, Emmy, and Tony Award. The final years of Mitchell's life were overshadowed by severe illness. He developed peritoneal mesothelioma, a rare and agonizing cancer often linked to toxic exposure decades earlier. The disease caused intense abdominal pain and progressive weakness, but Mitchell continued working as long as possible, appearing in television dramas and theater productions despite worsening symptoms. By the early 1960s, his health had deteriorated significantly, forcing him to withdraw from acting. Thomas Mitchell died on December 17, 1962, in Beverly Hills, California, at the age of 70 after complications from the cancer. At the time of his death, Mitchell had accumulated an estimated net worth of around $2 million, the result of a remarkable career that spanned Broadway, film, and television. Karolyn Grimes as Zuzu Bailey. Karolyn Grimes was born on July 4, 1940, in Hollywood, California, United States. At 6 years old, she played Zuzu Bailey, the youngest daughter whose innocent line about angels' wings became one of the most famous moments in It's a Wonderful Life. Her brief appearance added warmth and innocence to the film's emotional ending, turning a simple child's remark into one of the most quoted lines in cinema history. But the cheerful little girl audiences adored soon faced devastating personal losses. Grimes grew up expecting a normal life after the film, yet tragedy struck repeatedly. Her mother died when she was only 12, and her father died 3 years later, leaving her effectively orphaned as a teenager. She was sent to live with relatives in Missouri who belonged to a strict religious sect. They considered Hollywood sinful and forced her to abandon her past, burning photographs, clothing, and keepsakes connected to the film, even forbidding her to mention working with James Stewart. The child star who once charmed audiences suddenly found herself cut off from the very memory of her success. Adulthood brought even harsher blows. Grimes married young, raised children, and tried to build a stable life, but tragedy continued to follow her. Her youngest son died by suicide at just 18, a devastating loss that nearly broke her spirit. Years later, her second husband died of lung cancer, leaving her widowed and struggling with grief once again. Karolyn Grimes is 86 years old in 2026. After decades away from the spotlight, she gradually reconnected with the film that defined her childhood. Today, she travels to screenings and holiday events around the world, sharing memories of working with James Stewart and Donna Reed while introducing new generations to the film's message of hope. Her estimated net worth is around $2 million. H.B. Warner as Mr. Gower. H.B. Warner was born on October 26, 1876, in St. John's Wood, London, England. At 70 years old, he played Mr. Gower, the grieving pharmacist whose tragic mistake nearly poisons a child in It's a Wonderful Life. His brief but powerful performance added one of the film's most haunting moral lessons. Yet Warner's personal life carried its own quiet struggles. He first married F.R. Hamlin, but she died in 1913, leaving him widowed and emotionally shaken. 2 years later, he married Marguerite L. Rita Stanwood, hoping to rebuild stability, but that marriage ended in divorce in 1933. While coping with these losses, Warner continued appearing in major productions such as The King of Kings. By the 1940s, the industry had changed rapidly, and Warner struggled with the transition from silent-era prestige to smaller supporting roles. Rumors circulated that he occasionally drank alcohol before certain scenes to capture the raw despair of characters like Mr. Gower, which sometimes unsettled younger actors working beside him. The stories reflected the quiet frustration of a once-revered leading man adjusting to a different era of Hollywood. H.B. Warner died on December 21, 1958, in Los Angeles, California, after suffering a heart attack at the age of 82. He was cremated at the Chapel of the Pines Crematory in Los Angeles, and his legacy was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 6600 Hollywood Boulevard. At the time of his death, Warner's estate was estimated at around $1 million. Ward Bond as Bert the Cop. Ward Bond was born on April 9, 1903, in Benkelman, Nebraska, United States. At 43 years old, he played Bert the Cop, the friendly small-town policeman who helps protect Bedford Falls in It's a Wonderful Life. Though a supporting role, his presence reinforced the sense of community that defined the film's emotional world. Bond's personal life included turbulence long before political controversy engulfed him. He married Doris Sellers Childs in 1936, but the relationship collapsed in 1944, ending in divorce during the height of his film career. A decade later, he married Mary Louise Myers in 1954, and the couple remained together until his death. While maintaining this second marriage, Bond continued appearing in major films such as The Searchers, and later became widely known for the television series Wagon Train, steadily building a reputation as one of Hollywood's most recognizable character actors. Yet Bond's political activism made him one of the most polarizing figures in the industry. He became a leading member of the Conservative Motion Picture Alliance, openly supporting investigations that targeted suspected communists during the Hollywood blacklist era. Many in the film community accused him of helping destroy the careers of colleagues by cooperating with anti-communist campaigns. The controversy created intense hostility around him, and Bond reportedly received threats while living under the shadow of that bitter political battle. Ward Bond died suddenly on November 5, 1960, after suffering a massive heart attack in a Dallas hotel room while traveling with his wife to attend a football game. He was 57 years old. His funeral drew major Hollywood figures, and close friend John Wayne delivered the eulogy, reflecting their long partnership in Western films. At the time of his death, Bond's wealth was estimated at around $1 million. Frank Albertson as Sam Wainwright. Frank Albertson was born on February 2, 1909, in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, United States. At 37 years old, he played Sam Wainwright, the confident businessman who constantly tempts George Bailey with the promise of wealth in It's a Wonderful Life. His energetic performance gave the story a striking contrast between success and sacrifice. Off-screen, Albertson's life was far less glamorous than the rich character he played. He first married Virginia McFadden in 1931, and the couple had 2 children before divorcing in 1943. That same year, he married Grace Albertson, with whom he had 3 more children, bringing the total to 5. The growing family brought love but also crushing financial pressure. He constantly accepted new roles simply to keep money flowing into the household, often filming back-to-back television appearances. The relentless workload slowly took a toll on his health. Friends later described a man living under extreme financial anxiety, afraid that one dry season in Hollywood could destroy his family's stability. The stress deepened during the early 1960s as he continued working on television series like The Andy Griffith Show and Lawman. Behind the scenes, he suffered severe exhaustion and nervous strain, symptoms that doctors linked to prolonged stress and overwork. Frank Albertson died quietly in his sleep on February 29, 1964, at 55 years old, at his home in Santa Monica, California, after an apparent heart attack. Despite more than 100 film and television appearances across 4 decades, his estate was estimated at under $500,000. Bula Bondi as Mrs. Bailey. Bula Bondi was born on May 3, 1889, in Chicago, Illinois, United States. At 57 years old, she played Mrs. Bailey, the loving mother whose quiet strength supports George Bailey through his darkest moments in It's a Wonderful Life. Her gentle performance deepened the emotional core of the film and reinforced the story's powerful theme of family devotion. Bondi's professional life flourished, yet her personal life unfolded in profound solitude. She never married and never had children, dedicating nearly every moment to acting on stage and screen. Her career spanned celebrated films such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and Penny Serenade, earning her 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Supporting Actress. When the cameras stopped rolling, however, Bondi returned to a quiet home where her closest companion was her aging mother. The 2 women lived together for decades, forming a private world far removed from Hollywood's noise. That fragile world collapsed when her mother passed away. The loss left Bondi deeply alone. She withdrew almost entirely from social life, living quietly in a large house filled mostly with cats. Friends rarely saw her, and the house grew quieter with every passing year. The end came through a tragic accident. Bondi tripped over one of her cats in her home, suffering broken ribs that led to severe pulmonary complications. She died on January 11, 1981, in Woodland Hills, California, at 91 years old. At the time of her death, her estate was estimated at around $2 million, the final measure of a long and respected career in classic Hollywood cinema. Todd Karns as Harry Bailey. Todd Karns was born on January 15, 1921, in Los Angeles, California, United States. At 25 years old, he played Harry Bailey, George Bailey's younger brother whose heroism in war becomes one of the film's emotional triumphs in It's a Wonderful Life. His performance captured youthful loyalty and sacrifice, helping reinforce the film's message that one life can save many others. Behind the hopeful character stood a man struggling with identity. Karns was the son of well-known actor and director Roscoe Karns, a legacy that quietly haunted his career. He married Karolyn Grimes, and together they raised 3 children, but professionally he often felt trapped in his father's shadow. Although he appeared in films such as The Caine Mutiny and numerous television roles during the 1950s, the momentum never matched the expectations placed on him. Roles became smaller, offers less frequent, and the pressure to prove himself grew heavier with each passing year. Eventually, the struggle pushed him to abandon Hollywood entirely. In 1971, Karns and his wife Catherine moved to Ajijic near Guadalajara, Mexico, seeking a quieter life away from the industry that had defined him. There he opened and ran the Lakeside Little Theater, producing and directing English-language stage productions for nearly 3 decades. During those later years, he also faced a long battle with cancer, which gradually weakened him while he continued working in local theater. Todd Karns died on February 5, 2000, in Ajijic, Jalisco, Mexico, at the age of 79 after complications from cancer. His wife and children held a private family burial in Ajijic's cemetery, honoring the life he had rebuilt far from Hollywood. At the time of his death, Karns' estate was estimated at around $800,000. Henry Travers as Clarence. Henry Travers was born on March 5, 1874, in Prudhoe, Northumberland, England. At 72 years old, he played Clarence Oddbody, the gentle guardian angel sent to save George Bailey from despair in It's a Wonderful Life. His warm and slightly clumsy portrayal turned Clarence into one of the most beloved angels in film history and gave the movie its unforgettable message of redemption. While Clarence brought hope to audiences, Travers' real life followed a quieter path. He married actress Amy Forrest Rhodes in 1931, and the couple remained together until her death in 1954, a loss that deeply affected him. A year later, he married Angie Murphy, hoping to rebuild companionship during his later years. Throughout those decades, Travers appeared steadily in respected productions such as The Invisible Man, Shadow of a Doubt, and Mrs. Miniver, the last earning him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Ironically, the role that made him immortal also limited his future opportunities. After audiences embraced him as Clarence, many studios felt his gentle face had become too closely tied to the image of an angel. Casting directors struggled to imagine him in other roles, and offers gradually slowed. By the late 1940s, Travers quietly stepped away from Hollywood, retiring in 1949 after appearing in more than 50 films. Henry Travers died on October 18, 1965, at the age of 91 after suffering from arteriosclerosis, a condition that hardened and narrowed his arteries. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, beside his second wife. Though his final years were quieter and financially modest compared with many Hollywood stars, his estate was estimated at around $500,000. Samuel S. Hinds as Peter Bailey. Samuel S. Hinds was born on April 4, 1875, in Brooklyn, New York, United States. At 71 years old, he played Peter Bailey, the kind founder of Bailey Building and Loan and the moral compass of George Bailey's life in It's a Wonderful Life. His gentle performance strengthened the film's message about integrity and community. But the dignified father he portrayed hid a brutal real-life reversal of fortune. Hinds had once been a wealthy, Harvard-educated lawyer, practicing law for more than 3 decades while living comfortably as a millionaire. Then the Great Depression of 1929 destroyed his financial empire almost overnight. Investments collapsed, savings vanished, and the respected attorney suddenly found himself struggling to pay bills. Forced to reinvent his life in his 50s, he turned to acting and joined the Pasadena Community Playhouse, slowly building a second career in films such as You Can't Take It With You and the Dr. Kildare series. Hinds appeared in more than 200 films, often playing judges, doctors, or fathers, quietly accepting supporting roles to keep money coming in after his financial collapse. Even as his health weakened in the late 1940s, he continued appearing on screen. Sadly, Samuel S. Hinds died on October 13, 1948, in Pasadena, California, at 73 years old from pneumonia. He had once lived the life of a millionaire, yet by the time of his death, his fortune was almost completely gone. The victim of economic collapse and decades spent rebuilding a life through character roles in Hollywood. Frank Failen as Ernie Bishop. Frank Failen was born on December 8, 1905, in St. Louis, Missouri, United States. At 41 years old, he played Ernie Bishop, the loyal taxi driver who helps George Bailey in moments of crisis in It's a Wonderful Life. Though a small role, his character helped reinforce the film's sense of community and loyalty in Bedford Falls. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Failen's career was never built on fame. He married actress Carol Hughes, and together they raised 2 daughters. But financially, the family depended almost entirely on Failen's relentless workload. He appeared in hundreds of productions, moving from studio to studio, taking whatever roles were available. The struggle to stay employed defined his entire career. Failen appeared in more than 200 films and television productions, sometimes without credit, constantly racing against the industry's fear of unemployment. Television eventually gave him some stability with roles in series like The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis and guest appearances on Western dramas such as Maverick. Frank Failen died on August 2, 1985, in Burbank, California, at the age of 79 after complications from pneumonia. He was buried at San Fernando Mission Cemetery in Los Angeles, leaving behind a career that spanned more than 40 years. Despite appearing in hundreds of productions and even earning a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, his estate was estimated at around $300,000. The stars of It's a Wonderful Life once brought the town of Bedford Falls to life, but their real journeys were often far more dramatic than the film itself. Now that you've seen the It's a Wonderful Life. 1946. Cast. Then and now. Which story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories from classic Hollywood.